Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This is Empowering Her, and I'm so excited that I have my childhood best friend with us again, Michelle Souferian. Welcome to the podcast.
This is how we talk all the time, actually.
It actually is. So I feel
Right?
like if we're going to keep doing this, we're just going to have to be the most ourselves that we are. And it's kind of like a phone conversation. Like when we get on the phone and we just start our rants. And I kind
Mhm.
of feel like the topic that we have for everyone is a rant, but in a good way. It's like a therapeutic rant and how we can transform things for ourselves. Before we dive into the topic, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to the audience again, and then you introduce the topic.
Okay. Well, as Mel said, my name is Michelle Souferian. Mel and I have been uh, best friends since, I don't know, since I was at least 5 or 6. And without giving away our ages, I won't say how many years ago that was, but that's a big part of my resume is my friend. I'm a mom of 3, full-time working, and I live here in Los Angeles, California, and I work in the healthcare technology space. Um, and so when Mel asked me for a topic for us to talk about, I I was thinking about, when we want to ask for something, um, the fear that comes along with it. So I'm not talking about like asking for a home or a car or a shirt or a shoes. And maybe that is for some people, but I'm talking about like how do you know what to ask for? And is there an inherent fear in asking for what we want? And as I was thinking through it, um, it starts off with, do we know what to ask? Do someone told me this once, and I don't know if this is true. I'm actually dying to look it up, but someone told me that when people go through rabbinical school, one of the tests that they go through is not the questions that they answer, but rather they evaluate what questions they ask.
Mm-hmm.
And that for years has left a profound kind of impact with me that am I asking the right questions? Am I thinking about the right things, and related to our topic about asking, fear of asking for what you want, how often does fear play a part in the ask?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's start with like, how do you know what to ask for? Sometimes you're sitting there and where does fear come into play? Like, or maybe you're asking for more children. Maybe you're asking for health. Maybe you're asking for, and these are like the fundamental things, right? But like, then we get into like, it's not necessarily the must have, but you'd like to have. And then you start shying away from your ask. You're like, I don't know. I don't know if I need to ask for that. I have my health. I have my kids. I have my home. I have my car. I should just be grateful and I shouldn't ask. And
Yeah.
I think we fall in this trap of, well, we have to, you know, we should always be grateful, therefore we should not ask. I don't believe in that. I think you can be grateful and I think you can ask. It's not a or statement, it's an and statement. So I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good topic. Good topic. I definitely agree with you. I know that when I find myself wanting something, going after something, praying, it often comes up when I pray. Um, and then sometimes this voice, like this other part of me comes in and is like, yeah, you've got enough. Like you got to be grateful for what you have. Like you don't need more. And I'm not talking about material things, right? I'm just talking about anything. So I think we all do have that, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's serving us. I certainly don't think it's serving us. I think we are we are depriving ourselves of what we are worthy of in this life, you know? And I think that we don't have to be afraid to want. So it's like you and I are talking about asking, but I think we even need to scale it back to wanting, where we've
Well,
made
that's what,
wanting something that's perhaps selfish, you know?
well, I think, and especially in recent years, and I'm not saying this as a point of criticism, I'm saying this because I think it's true and it's right. So like you hear a lot of speakers, motivational speakers, people who say, if you want to feel good, if you want to snap out of it, if you should wake up every day and you should have gratitude. You should have gratitude that your heart is beating. You should have gratitude that you're alive. You should have, and that's true. Like that shouldn't go away. We shouldn't not be grateful for what we have. But that gratitude doesn't necessarily mean that because I'm grateful, I shouldn't ask for more. So I want to just tell you about an experience I had this past Friday, which made me think about this topic. I was at the hairdresser and another customer came in and she was friends with my hairdresser and they were having a conversation and I got injected into the conversation, and like I always inject myself. And we were talking about, so here's a girl who, I just met her for the first time. She was 43, a yoga instructor. She does meditational walkthroughs. So she takes people on journeys through different medicines, if you will. And she just struck me as a really fascinating person.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could see though that there was a sadness in her face, and the sadness was, and maybe this is my bad, but we did talk about it a bit, her and I, that she hadn't gotten married, she hadn't had kids. And while she loved her life, it was an area that she was like, I guess this is not for me, and was kind of like wondering that. So that came out in the conversation. And she's a sibling to 3 other boys. Okay. And we were talking about somehow my trip to Israel and how I met my husband came up and this and that. And she said, yeah, I went to the wall. And I said, did you ask for what you want back then? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, did you write the letter? She goes, yes. And I said, well, did you ask for what you want? And she said, she thought about it and she said, I didn't ask for what I want. I asked for like what I want for other people. I asked for my brother. I asked for my mom. And I said, but did you ask for yourself? And she's like, I didn't. She's like, because what I want for myself is what I want for other people. And I said, and I could see there was a light bulb kind of going off, like with her and I in this exchange. And it dawned on me that a lot of times we're really afraid to ask for what it is we want. And that fear, think about it. If it takes a lot to ask the universe for what you want, you have to be bold. You got to be willing to take your chances that what you may want may not be in store for you. That, everything that, you think you deserve because this thing doesn't happen means you don't deserve it. So we attach meaning to the result of what we're looking for, right? So I just see this a lot where, either people feel undeserving or they don't know what to ask for, or they think they should be grateful and therefore shouldn't want more. And it's like, especially with women, geez, man, let's just step into this and let's be grateful and let's ask for what we want. What's the harm in that?
Yep. I love that. And I love the story. I love us catching ourselves in moments like this. I mean, let's just say this off the bat. We are deserving of everything that we wish and want for ourselves. We're deserving of it. And we're worthy just because we are. We say this to the girls in our workshops all the time. You are worthy just because you are. It's not because of anything you've done or said. You were born worthy and you are worthy. So when we can claim that worthiness, I think a lot of possibilities and opportunities unlock for us. I love that you say, and we can have gratitude and we can want more, because wanting more ultimately, wanting more growth, wanting more evolution, wanting to learn more, wanting to meet new people, wanting to have new experiences, read new books. I mean, of course we want more. This is our birthright. This is part of evolution, right? So it's okay to want more. And yes, gratitude actually unlocks the door to more. So when we can have gratitude for what we want, not in a toxic positivity kind of way, right? Like I know you were saying some thought leaders are like, wake up with gratitude. And sometimes we don't. Like, let's just own it. Sometimes we wake up and we don't feel grateful. And it doesn't help us to compare ourselves to people who have less, do less, live in parts of the world where they have access to less. So I always say, let's feel what we feel the thing that we're feeling so that we can move through it and release it and move into a place of gratitude, right? If the gratitude part is hard. But yes, we can have gratitude and then move into owning what we want. But on this topic of what we want, I think there are a few things that stop us from going after what we want and asking for what we want. I think one is a lack of clarity. Like we don't always even know what we want, right? Like, right.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Like, so
sometimes you don't even know.
You don't even know. There's a lack of clarity. So how do you move in the direction of the thing when you don't really know what the thing is? And I think that also comes from years of conditioning, like being told to want a certain thing, like take girls and guys for example, being told, and I believe in the union of marriage. I love being married. I love all that, but I can also very clearly see that that's not for everyone and that not everyone wants that. But these ideas that are, planted into our brains and our minds, making us think that we should want what everyone else wants, that kind of block us from really digging into what is it that I really, 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 really want. And I know you got something to say about that.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I also think, like, let's not overthink things, right? Like, I I can imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe a lot of people watching this podcast are gonna be like, shoot, she's so out of touch. I could feel and appreciate that and probably expect and assume. I mean, she did say it at one point, but even without her saying it, this girl I met, I could see the sadness of, you want to have a life partner, and again, to your point, I do know a lot of people who've never wanted kids, and I actually think that was the right decision for them, and they shouldn't have had kids as an example. So it's not a one size fits all, but I don't think it's bad to want the things that maybe in society everybody else wants and to follow the herd. I think the key is to not be attached to the result. That's the key. And that's where I think gratitude plays a part in what you want. So my husband told me, and I don't know his name, but he's an Indian fellow. He has that white beard. Geez, I see him all over the internet and I can't remember his name right now, but he's kind of like a Deepak Chopra, kind of spiritual leader. And he was talking about, like, not to be, it's okay to also want something, but you can't be attached to the result. The minute you get attached to the result, that's kind of like where things kind of turn. And I remember hearing this, and even now, like, I'm having a hard time, like, as I'm saying it, I'm like, God, how do you not get attached to the result?
Yeah.
But every time I think about gratitude, I stop getting attached to the result. So just think about what we're saying, right? I'm going to use myself as an example. I live in a great house. It's a beautiful house. But I'm just going to say, like, it could be a little bit bigger for a family of 5. Okay. Family of 5 is, and then we were bumping into each other. So, and I go back and forth because my kids were born in this house, and I have this feeling of gratitude, but a part of me is like, God, I really would love if we just could be in a bigger house, right? But every time I come back to, I'm grateful for this space that we have and the love that exists here. And that house I keep driving by every day and I say that's my dream house, I'm going to get it. And they are one and the same. They are
Yep.
not, it's not a, I'm not trying to feel, I know one day I will get that dream house. It's just right now, this is part of the journey. And there's so much empowerment stepping into that. Like, step into that for yourself. Step into the fact that you can still have that and be grateful for right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's a really healthy way of manifesting, right? That's releasing the results. That's doing the thing, having gratitude for where you are, dreaming about what may come next, right? Without being tied to the idea of it having to come right now, and without robbing yourself of the enjoyment of this house right now where you are, just because there's another house that you one day would like to call into your life, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a really healthy way of calling in what you want. You're not attached to that result. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to happen next week. You already know, like, I love that. Like, you already know what's going to happen.
I don't already know, but
Well, you kind of said that.
yeah, here's what I've like come to, that I believe that I am on the right journey to get me there. That's
Love
what
it.
I
Yep.
believe that I am where I'm supposed to be right now in order to get there in whatever amount of time.
Yep.
That's what I genuinely believe. And that, we're kind of like twisting all the topics here, but that's also kind of playing, that's also, being about being present and, loving where you're at right now. And, just trust that where you are right now is where you're supposed to be, and that you shouldn't be afraid to ask and to want more in your life. I can't express this enough, or I genuinely see in so many women this, you see it, it's on their face, like, do I deserve it? Should I really want more? I don't really know if I deserve it. And it's like, no, go after that, lady. Like, you got this. And also love the journey to get there. Every door closed, everything that's happening, it is for the purpose of getting you through the journey on that road to that house. That I believe.
I agree 100%. And I've been doing a lot of studying of the law of attraction over the years. And Esther Hicks, for anyone who listens to Esther Hicks, so I absolutely love this body of wisdom. And she says, when we're wanting something, we're dwelling in an energy of not having it, right? So we want it, so we feel like we don't have it. And that energy is never going to create that thing that we want and bring it into our lives. So she'll say things like, um, you know, have the desire, but then go and just enjoy your life. Focus on the feelings that are going to make you feel good. Like you just said, enjoy the process. So, like, claim that this is what I want and this is what I'm manifesting in the future. But then instead of dwelling in the energy of want, because I don't have it yet, dwell in the energy of something that does bring you that joy and that feeling of freedom that you might have from living in that house, and the amount of space, open space that you'll have. Like, find that feeling in the now and dwell in that feeling in the now. And you won't be in the energy of the want, but you'll be in the energy of the attracting it towards you. And I hope that I've said that well. I feel like that's the clearest way that I can say it.
Beautiful.
And like stepping into, like, all we have is now. That's it. That's all we have. We don't have yesterday. We don't have 2 minutes ago. We don't have 12 days ago. We don't, we can't future trip because nothing is certain. All we have is now. So if you can focus on the feeling of right now and feel the best that you possibly can in this moment, or feel the thing you need to feel so that you can feel better, that's the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that what you just said, and you said it so beautifully, that's how you don't get attached to the result. If you live in that energy of gratitude of what exists today, then you are not attaching yourself to the result of what you want, you know, but go after it, you know, go after it. And, you know, for all you romantics out there, like, you know, hope, dream, live, love, get disappointed, get hurt. Like, it's okay.
Live.
We're here, right? Live, just live. And, you know, enjoy this. And, you know, if anyone's watched that movie Parenthood with Steve Martin, there is that scene. Do you remember that movie?
I for sure have seen it many times, but my I don't remember. When you say it, maybe it'll spark something.
So you know, he's a father of, I think, 3 in the movie, and they're young kids, and, you know, he's working, and he's overwhelmed with life and parenting and all of that. And he's just going through the motions, right, of trying to deal with all of this. And, you know, finally he's at his kid's school play, and his kid bumps into another kid, and all the props and everything start to fall apart. And they snip into like his mind, and he's on this roller coaster, you know, and a roller coaster can be incredibly fearful, but it can be incredibly fun. Watch his mind. He starts out in fear, and then you kind of see him release, put his hands up, and enjoy the ride. You know, enjoy the it. It can go both ways, but which one are you going to take?
What are you going to choose? What's your perspective?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, because when I was thinking about this topic, and I was thinking of like asking for what we want, knowing what we want, fearing what we want, how much of the fear that we have asking for what we want is actually caused by our fear of success?
So much. So much. That's why, you know, I thought this is a good topic. What happens if we actually get what we want? Holy shit! I got that house. I got that job. I got that guy. I got that kid. You know, there's that, you know me, Mel, I love movies. There's that scene in the Sex and the City movie, the first one, where, you know, Charlotte gets pregnant and she starts crying, and she stops jogging, and Carrie comes in and says, "What's wrong with you?" And she says, "I'm so afraid of losing this baby because I got everything I want." How much is that us in our lives, right? Like, then we get what we want, and we're like, oh my God, how do we deal with this now?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so, and again, feeling deserving and feeling like fearful that now that I have what I want, am I going to lose what I have? There's fear in succeeding and getting ultimately what it is that you want. And, you know, I'm like probably the worst person to talk about this part, because this is me. You know, I know that I live in a constant fear of, oh my God, what happens if I actually get it? Like, what happens there? You know? And it stops me a lot of time, because the other aspect of this is what do you have to give up if you got what you wanted?
Yes.
I have to give up being a victim. I have to give up complaining that I don't have what I want. I have to give up the feeling of unworthiness. I have to give up, you know, this feeling that I actually should have this in my life. Like, and those things have served me well. Let's be honest. They've served me well.
Have they?
Yeah. I can call you and complain about how shitty whatever is. There's
How
a
does
comfort.
that serve you?
Because there's a comfort in that. There's a comfort in, oh, like, some people live in the comfort of the fact that they are a victim, or they haven't gotten what they wanted, or what it might cause to their relationships. We talked about this in our last podcast, right? And especially for women, when you're successful, what happens? you might have people who no longer want to be around you. You might have people who no longer want to talk to you. You might have people who, you know, are threatened by you. So now you start to lose those people because you've suddenly, you know, come to achieve. So there's a fear in that. What happens, and don't think your mind doesn't know this. Well, if you know, if tomorrow I achieve all my dreams and now I can go, let's just use a real example, even between you and I, right? And, you know, I'm not that this is my dream in any way, but imagine if one of my dreams were like, I want to be a billionaire and I want to be able to have a house everywhere in all the great places of the world and be able to travel to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what would that mean potentially to yours and my friendship? Like, when I at least see you 2-3 times a year, then I don't necessarily see you, and you may feel like you can't keep up with me anymore. Like, how will that dynamic change? Like, there's a lot that our mind thinks about, like consciously or unconsciously, about what happens if we achieve something.
Yeah. Yeah. And that energetically blocks us from bringing it into our lives. So it's really like that internal dialogue, that reflection, that, you know, whether it's we're journaling or writing or talking to someone, a therapist, a coach, or someone, but it's like really looking at the things that you say you want and asking yourselves, yeah, is that really true for me? Do I really want that thing? And if I do really want it, how am I going to create space for it in my life? What am I no longer going to be available for? Right? Who are the people that can no longer support that version of me? Just like you just said right now. But I will tell you this. Yes, there is such a comfort in knowing that if there's something that I need to talk to you about, that I can call you anytime and be like, ugh, right? Because there will be things in life that are like that. And we need to have someone that we can vent to, right? So, but I will also be there to hold that version of you who gets what she wants and calls me and tells me, like, guess what? Like, XYZ, guess what? I've committed to writing a book. Guess what? I've committed, whatever that version is for you. So, like, you know, that's another question to ask ourselves. Like, if we have too many people in our lives who we love to get on the phone with and, you know, I don't want to use the word complain because there's a difference between venting and complaining. But if that just becomes the norm, then that's another
Yeah,
trigger to become aware of.
yeah, I don't think it's necessarily, and maybe the friend, you know, example is not the right one, but maybe it's siblings, right? Like, what happens if I get what I want and my sibling doesn't? What happens if you earn more money than your husband does? What does that do to the marriage?
Yeah.
What happens if, you know, I get what I want and I'm no longer the version of the mom I want to be to my kids? So, you know, maybe the friendship one isn't the most predominant, but you see what I mean? Like, you there are these blockers that I think come with the fear of, you know, if I actually get what I want, what happens to these other things? And I think those unconsciously become, or consciously become, a blocker for us. Again, I'll be the first to say I am ridiculously afraid of like, if I got it, what I would do with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I would be Charlotte. I definitely would be Charlotte in that scene, and I would be like, oh my God, I got everything. And then the fear of, now that I have it, you know, am I going to lose it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And am I willing to go after what I want? Get it. It's almost better not to have it, right? Like,
I hate that for us, right? Like, I hate that for us because what does that mean about our dreams? You know,
yeah.
that this is a big thing we're saying here. Like, I really do. I think it's big, and it's like, we need to get into it. Like, we need to get into it because then what is the point of dreaming, right? Like, what is the point? What is the point? What is the point of dreaming or setting goals if the fear of having that goal be achieved is bigger than the goal itself.
Very,
Ouch.
very well said.
Ouch. I don't like that for us.
And I don't think that that's for everyone. You know, I'm picturing someone in particular listening to this conversation and be like, this girl is whacked. And not coming from a place, but coming from a place like, girl, just go after what you want and shut the fuck up. You know,
Right.
like, you know, it's like overthinking it. And again, maybe thinking that we're undeserved. Like I could see this person right now sitting in front of me and being like, just go after what you want. You know,
Well,
stop.
listen, but there are different people, right? Some people will be listening to this conversation and be like, you're overanalyzing, stop it, go after what you want. But there's a good population of people who literally, and that's why I asked this question, is like, how much are we afraid of the success of what comes after on the other side of getting what we want? It is a subconscious block. We said this on the last episode. I feel like I say it all the time. 96% of our brains are our subconscious minds. So if that 4% is all in, that 4% of our conscious mind, they're like, I am all in, I'm going for my dreams. There's still 96% of programming from our childhood, from the conversations that we've had, from things that we've read, from things that we've witnessed without ever noticing that we witnessed them, that is running the show, right? It's running the show. So this is an important conversation, and it is important for us to, ask ourselves, what's on the other side of getting what I want? And am I prepared for it? And if I'm not, what do I need to do to get prepared for it? And if I am, then let's go all in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think these are all the questions that, again, kind of play a role in asking for what it is that we want, right? These are all the questions we ask ourselves, all the things. And I honestly, for those people out there that do just go for it, join Mel's podcast, because I want to watch how you guys about it.
Come and be a guest on the podcast if you've
Yeah.
gone for it and you've gotten it, or vice versa. Like, you just know that you're not the container to hold the space for what's on the other side. But what I'm thinking here is, let's, like, we were at a Shabbat dinner on Friday night, and my daughter Noah brought up, like, there's a TED Talk. Did you send this to us? I don't know who sent it to us. And it's like all about big talk instead of small talk. It's like we go out and it's constantly small talk. Like, I know you're not into that, and I really like, I can't do small talk for extended periods of time. And so in this TED Talk, this girl's like, let's go right into big talk. Let's talk about big things, important things. Like, I don't care what the weather's like or what you had for dinner last night or what you're doing tomorrow. Like, let's talk about the stuff that matters. And so, like, in the spirit of having more big talk, I invite the people who are listening to this, like, grab a friend and have this conversation. Ask them, like, do you fear your success? Do you fear asking for what you want? And if you do, why? Why do you fear the success? What's on the other? Like, have a big conversation about this and let us know. Like, we want to hear from you. What are you coming up with? Like, this is just two women having a chat about what they feel and what their experiences have been in asking for what they want. And we haven't even really gotten to times where we've asked for what we wanted and perhaps not gotten it, right? Because that's one of the things that holds us back from continuing to ask. But I want to be mindful of your time and the time of our listeners and all of that. Like, if we had some last minute things to leave people with, any final thoughts until you and I meet here again and do this again? Because I think people really I got so much amazing feedback from the last time you and I spoke. And, like, selfishly, like, I want you to do this with me every week, because it's a lot of, like, this is our weekly conversation, right? So, but anything you want to leave people with?
I think I want to leave myself with something,
Yeah.
because I feel like I don't want your listeners to leave this conversation with like, okay, now what?
Right.
And I think like I live in the now what, like, right? Because I'm afraid to ask for what it is that I want. And so if I were trying to like leave myself with something so that my day is filled with energy and the kind of power that like I'm going to get this thing done, is I really want to live in that space where I can put myself out there for what I want and accept and receive the gifts that the universe have coming for me, and appreciate that I was grateful for the journey that got me there, and that I am not going to lose what it is that I've achieved, because I am deserving of it.
Yeah. Gorgeous. What a beautiful declaration that you
Yeah.
just made.
Write that down and send it to me so I can put it.
Well, I'm actually going to turn that into the teaser. Like we have these teasers, reels on Instagram, and that's going to be it. Because that's a beautiful, like, I am declaring this as my truth. I'm affirming it. Let's freaking go.
Let's
Right?
go.
Let's go. And if I were to leave people with anything and leave myself with anything, it would be like dwelling in the question. I'm bringing this back full circle. You said something about rabbinical school, and it's in the questions. And I always feel like, you know, the quality of the response that we get is in the questions that we're willing to ask ourselves and the questions that we're willing to dwell in. So asking ourselves, do I know what I want? And am I willing to go for it? And journaling on that, you know, reflecting on that and being really honest. And I think that's the hardest thing to do. But if you can be honest with yourself, like that's really the first step in getting to that next evolution of yourself. So, and we'll be back.
Yeah. And I bet you, just on that topic of journaling, and if I know you well enough, when we're doing that of what we want, there's going to be a moment where you're like, we're all reserved to actually just pay attention to that. I'm curious to see if that happened. Or can you really let loose and be like, I want to live in Paris, like whatever it might be, like really like, what is it that we want? I wonder if there's that moment where you hold back. Is that too much? See if that happens. I'm curious to know if that happens.
I totally will. I will. And I know that this is a whole other tangent, but I just want to say this, like, Michelle, you know this, like everybody knows this because I talk about it a lot, because that's what's going on for me right now is my girls are God willing going away to college in a year. And I'm blessed with this open space of figuring out what's next. Like, what is the next iteration of my business? What is the next iteration of my relationship with my husband? What is the next iteration about like our living situation? Where are we going to be? Are we going to still have our home? Are we going to move? Are we going to, you know, what are we going to do? And so, I feel like this is exactly the exercise that I need right now to really hone in on what I want unapologetically without being afraid to dwell in the question. So I will report back.
Love it. Thank
Love
you, my
it.
love.
I love you. Thank you so much for being here with us again, Michelle. If you've loved this episode, let us know. Michelle, if anyone wants to connect with you on Instagram, where's the best place?
Oh gosh. I don't even know what my Instagram account is, but I think it's just M Souferian.
Yeah, I feel like it's M Souferian at M Souferian. And I'll link it.
Very, very, original.
It's clear so people can find you, right? Anyways, I love you. Thank you for your time, sweetheart. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.